Listen to me. If there was a wise man who would ever think of this, they would say in order to be superior to the man, you've got to be the man. For I am the man himself.
How you guys all doing tonight? This is the Club of the Man 1993, and this is episode number 20 in this WWE 24 review series, as we have moved on to episode number 20, as I said before, and we are still sticking on a lead up to a moment at WrestleMania 35. Last time we did Becky Lynch. This time it's Ronda Rousey, as we review WWE 24 Revolutionary, the year of Ronda Rousey. Now, of course, in this day and age, since Ronda Rousey had a second run in WWE, I would retitle this Revolutionary, the good year of Ronda Rousey. Because, unfortunately, Ronda's second run was not good. I'm sorry. I don't know if either just Ronda just didn't have the heart for it the second run, or she was just much more distracted being a mother or whatnot. I don't know what it was, but that second run was hot garbage. The only thing that was good for that second run that I did like was the I Quit match she had at WrestleMania Backlash against Charlotte Flair when she won the SmackDown Women's Championship. But we're going to pretend that didn't happen. Let's pretend that this is, for what she did up to WrestleMania 35, let's pretend that that's the case of what happened. So, this is a build-up from Ronda getting to the main event spot, her goal. And the main takeaway from this documentary was supposed to be that no matter where she was in the WWE or in the UFC, the goal Ronda Rousey had was to make a statement that, again, women can be just as successful than the men. Whether it's in the WWE, again, or UFC, which she is known to have revolutionized MMA for women's wrestling. They even said for UFC, there is a conference room named after Ronda Rousey, just like there is with Muhammad Ali and whatnot. And her story of her getting to WWE. And I will say this, though. I Ronda did a good job in the interviews in this documentary. But to me, it more so felt like a Ronda did this, Ronda did this, Ronda did this, Ronda did this. Like, all things to paint a good picture of what Ronda did her first run in the company. But I feel like in the Becky Lynch one, there felt like more of like a story to it and kind of like an emotional side to it in the one for Becky. The one for Ronda was more so like, it felt like it was just fact checking and just like listing off different facts and whatnot. And that was really it. Like I said, there wasn't really like an emotional or like story flow. It was just like, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. Babies, 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 babies. Yes, literally after her match at WrestleMania 35, there's a shot of her and the Riot Squad just hugging and dancing around going, babies, 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 babies. Because we all know Ronda Rousey was leaving WWE after WrestleMania 35 to go off on impregnation vacations to have a baby, as she wanted to have babies. And just a couple nights ago? Well, I'm recording this currently on Saturday night. I think it was like 1 or 2 days ago from when I recorded this was when Ronda Rousey gave birth to her second daughter. She has 2 daughters now. But yeah, let's roll in and talk about this. So again, it basically, the first like couple minutes was just like kind of highlighting, that she made a name for herself in the UFC. And that her goal was, in fact, to just, once again, like many women, show that, women can, do things that men can. And Ronda, of course, absolutely succeeded with it, revolutionizing wrestling in the women's wrestling in the MMA. She retired from MMA in 2016, and she always was a fan of the WWE. They showed a couple highlights of her in the crowd at certain shows. They, of course, showed the one where she really made a splash, where it kind of made people like, maybe we could see this someday down the line, was when she was at WrestleMania 31 in the front row, and The Rock recruited her to help him against Stephanie McMahon and Triple H. So obviously that was setting up for a long-awaited mixed tag team match that we wish it was Ronda and The Rock versus Stephanie and Triple H. We all know when they finally did have Ronda in the mixed tag match, it was Ronda Rousey and Kurt Angle versus Stephanie McMahon and Triple H when that match happened. So that was kind of like, I guess like you could say it was somewhat of a tease to see, how the fans would react, like who all in the WWE universe really knows who Ronda Rousey is. I'll be honest, well then again, I'm a late bloomer to everything. I didn't know who Ronda Rousey was until that day, to be honest. But it got the fans buzzing, and it kind of got the gears going. I think it wasn't until the 2017 Mae Young Classic where Ronda actually went to the Performance Center and just for the fun of it started training, and people thought she had a natural act for it. Like, she seemed like she was good with it, needed polish with some things, especially the microphone work, of course, which Ronda has had some streaks where she's cut better promos, but then she's had some streaks where she was not good on the microphone at all whatsoever. Which was why there were several times there were rumors of giving Ronda a manager. Heck, if you wanted to, I know a lot of people said this, you could have had her be the first Paul Heyman girl. Ronda Rousey with Paul Heyman would have been excellent. I do know before she left for AEW, there was talks about Paige being her manager, but that, of course, never happened. But Ronda never had a manager, of course, in the end. And then, of course, she finally would make her WWE debut after the 2018 Women's Royal Rumble match. She came out, basically just stared down. She shook hands with Asuka. Asuka just slapped him because Asuka just won the Women's Rumble. She kind of stares down at both Charlotte and Alexa. They were both the champions at the time. And then she does starting the awkward finger pointing to WrestleMania again, showing that, although she's a fan, she was a little like vanilla at the time when it came to like charisma and whatnot. Like as she mentioned too, her smile when she's a babyface, she's smiling because she's genuinely happy. She's a fan of the show, and she's happy to be a part of it. Of course, when she's a heel, she doesn't smile. She just power walks to the ring, doesn't even like pose around. It's like, okay, let's get this moving and whatnot, pretty much. Or of course, as we saw like towards the end of her first run, she was cutting those promos, like that famous one of her getting her makeup done, saying how wrestling is fake, and it kind of played into the storyline of her heel character and whatnot. But yeah, so Ronda Rousey made her debut, and then she briefly showed the contract signed, and then got ready for a match at WrestleMania 34. Played up the idea how it was kind of some big pressure. Like, they pretty much were setting the bar pretty high for Ronda Rousey. They knew she was known outside the WWE. They looked at her as someone who could draw in other fans, and also more so like, okay, you have this mission statement to be making a statement for women, go out there and show us what it is. And I continue to say this, Ronda Rousey's mixed tag match, WrestleMania 34, was the best match of that night. It stole the show. And it proved that she indeed did belong there. Ronda would go on to, of course, as she mentioned too, was like, she didn't want to be there having women, think that she was there to take their spot. She was there to make a statement for all of them in general. And people, of course, did catch on to, the women's rosters did catch on to that backstage. And they genuinely did respect Ronda. Ronda did fit in. They did emphasize, of course, how her main training partner and one of her biggest friend, besides, of course, Shayna Baszler, Jessamyn Duke, and Marina Schafir, which, actually, I forgot to mention before, through Roderick Strong, who is Marina Shafir's husband, he actually got her connected with the Brian Kendrick, and he trained, he actually trained Ronda in the ring leading up to her debut match. I forgot to mention that. What I also forgot to mention too is they did, of course, mention how she was a big fan of Rowdy Roddy Piper, which is why she was Rowdy Ronda Rousey. But they didn't mention the story, I guess, how she was able to get a hold of his actual jacket. And when she debuted at the Women's Royal Rumble, that jacket she wore was legitimately his. I forgot that they did not mention that story, of course, unfortunately. But Ronda did say she still wanted to earn, where she was at. She didn't want to look like she got handed everything to her. She did, of course, have the Money in the Bank match against Nia Jax, which they didn't show, but Alexa Bliss interfered after she won Mr. Money in the Bank and cashed in. That was done to obviously give Ronda, because at the time, Nia was a face. They gave Ronda a legitimate heel for her to give their comeuppance. And Ronda did win the Raw Women's Championship from Alexa at SummerSlam in a legitimate squash match. She would go on to, of course, have the responsibility as Raw Women's Champion to draw in the crowd. And again, she did her job right. They highlighted how she was picked the main event, the only all-women's pay-per-view they've done so far, Evolution, against Nikki Bella. Look, I'm sorry, again, I didn't like the idea that it was Ronda Rousey versus Nikki Bella. Like, somebody else who legitimately made a true statement in this new era of women's wrestling against Ronda. Okay, I would have accepted Ronda and Charlotte. I would have accepted either Ronda and Becky if they would have done it at the time. But not Ronda Rousey and Nikki Bella. I'm sorry, that was not a match worthy of main eventing the show. More so on Nikki Bella, not on Ronda Rousey. I still think the match that should have main evented Evolution 2018 was Becky and Charlotte, Last Woman Standing. And it was probably one of the best matches all year, not just for women, but for everyone in general. But they gave it to Ronda. But again, respect knowing that, again, Ronda herself was trying to make a statement about women. So I understand she's probably the biggest name, biggest draw, but again, come on, you could have given her a more worthier opponent of that spot than Nikki Bella. Just my honest opinion, if I'm being real. So there was that there. And then, of course, they did talk about the build-up to the match with Becky for Survivor Series. But, of course, unfortunately, that did not happen. And she fought Charlotte instead. And a lot of people said she really, really proved something in that match with Charlotte, which I agree. That match with Charlotte at Survivor Series 2018 was definitely one of Ronda's best matches, I would say. The other ones, the WrestleMania 38 one was not good. Well, it was okay. It wasn't that great. But I did like her I Quit match, of course, that she had against Charlotte. But, of course, that started kind of getting Charlotte somewhat involved in the storyline for WrestleMania 35. And they even talked about how, although Ronda had a big ego, Becky's ego was getting bigger, which, of course, it took from, her being probably the big focus of the possible upcoming women's main event match for WrestleMania, and Becky was. So they had no choice, but they had to turn Ronda heel right before she left the company, which, okay, I feel like character-wise, Ronda probably would be better as a heel. But, of course, the character work she had in the last run, of course, when most of it was she was a heel, did not work, of course. But, yeah, basically, just the build, they really went out of their way to make that match feel important with the build. Yes, it was a little overproduced, but stuff like the go-home show on Raw, when all three of them were arrested, but kicking down car windows and whatnot, fighting through it, that was on the point storytelling. But just they were like making Becky be all badass, and then they were just like softening her up with the apologies and the injuries that she was selling the wrong angle with. Like, again, it was definitely could have been a smoother build for that match. And I still think to this day it should have just been Ronda and Becky. There was no need to throw Charlotte into the mix there. Yes, I mean, it kind of makes sense with the whole point of Becky, changing the way she did was because she was tired of Charlotte getting in her way. Every time she was about to grasp it, Charlotte got in her way and whatnot. But I still think it should have been Ronda and Becky. And it's a shame that we probably will never get that match, like I said in the Becky video. But then, of course, you could have done it at WrestleMania 38. I really thought when Ronda won the Rumble in 2022, she was going to go after Becky Lynch because they're history, but she said she picked Charlotte. Now, then again, a face Ronda Rousey versus a heel Becky Lynch, I don't think would have worked. Because people would have wanted to see Becky beat Ronda. But, they talk about the match that happened. Like I said, in the Becky one, other than the botched finish, it was still a good match. But, yeah, afterwards, they show people like Seth Rollins, thanking Ronda for, all she had done the past year and whatnot, and wish her the best of luck. Like I said, they were showing her in the Riot Squad, hugging and dancing around, going, babies, 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 babies. Because, again, the goal was for her to be there for a year, leave after WrestleMania 35, and go be a mom. And, of course, I think she definitely always intended on coming back at some point, but it took her a little bit longer than she thought it was for her to come back, because she didn't have a baby right away, as she was hoping to. But, yeah, overall, like I said, the first year of Ronda Rousey was definitely a success. The second one, not so much. But, again, like I watched this, and you can appreciate, again, the message she was trying to send. The continued statement that a lot of women try to make today about the fact that, they don't need to be looked at as, like, secondary. They deserve to be the main spotlight as well. And, again, other than a couple hiccups, the first run, Ronda succeeded with that. And she had an excellent first run, and well-deserved. But yep, that's that story for about the first year of Ronda Rousey in this W24 special. When I do return late next week, after I get home from my business trip, which I leave tomorrow, I'll probably be uploading this when I get to my hotel room. I will continue on with this 24 series. I believe the next one is about Batista and the lead up to his final match at WrestleMania 35 as well. So we still have, I think 3 more of these 24 specials regarding some sort of a build to WrestleMania 35. So we'll probably get sick of WrestleMania 35 after a while. I personally still never get sick of it personally, because that was the WrestleMania I attended in person. But we'll see what happens. So what are your guys' thoughts on this documentary, Revolutionary, the Year of Ronda Rousey? Leave your thoughts down in the comments section below. Be sure also, as always, to slap a like on the video and subscribe for more content to come on my channel. Follow me on Twitter as well at the Club of the Man 93. You may also follow me on TikTok and on Instagram at the Club of the Man 1993. And until then, guys, I'm checking out. I'll catch you all later. And do not forget, in order to be superior to the man, you've got to be the man. And for I am the man himself. And that is not just an opinion, my friends. That is a fact of life. Yeah!